This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
At long last, the 2023 NFL season gets underway tonight with the Chiefs and the Lions, which means that Sunday is just around the corner. We're here to break down the biggest games on the Sunday slate, talking to you about our favorite bets over at FanDuel Sportsbook by talking to Dr. Ed Feng of the Power Rank, getting his read on the biggest games this week and his favorite bets over at FanDuel. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and on FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Dr. Ed Feng. You can find his work at thepowerrank.com and check him out on Twitter at thepowerrank. Ed is back with us every Thursday for this year, along with his typical Wednesday spot for college football. And Ed, the NFL is back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Really looking forward to some football tonight to see if offensive coordinator Ben Johnson can keep that hype train going like he has all off season. And yeah, we'll see what Kansas City does. Last I checked, we didn't have any news whether Kelsey was going to be able to play. So is that still up in the air?
Yeah,
last time you checked?
He's up in the air right now. It's Schefter was on, I think, the Pat McAfee show, and he said that he wants to play and will try to play. So right. Will he be 100% Travis Kelsey at that point? I would guess not, because a knee issue with a bone bruise does not sound super fun. So probably not 100%, but it does sound like maybe he gives it a go. And like, I feel like I kind of need him out there just to, like, from a fun perspective, because we get the Chiefs without Chris Jones, without Travis Kelsey, it does kind of diminish the hype a bit around what is a really, really fun game.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting. I think it's a pretty good game. I think I saw some tweets kind of lamenting the fact that it was Detroit in this game. I think it's good that it's Detroit in this game. They're coming in the season with a lot of hype. Let's see how it works out.
I think the Lions are a blast. I'm excited to see what they can do this year. They were a very profitable team for me last year. I have nothing on this game, which feels great. So I can just sit back and enjoy, see how it goes. If you do want some action on this game, check out Tom Vecchio's preview. Primetime Tom, our first episode of that, went up last night, breaking down Tom's favorite props for the Lions and the Chiefs. Find that right here on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, along with every other Thursday as well. That'll also be up on FanDuel TV Plus. You can find that by going to Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Roku, or just go to FanDuel.com/watch to check that out. Covering the Spread is also on the FanDuel YouTube page if you want to view a video version of the show. We're going to dive on in to this week one slate here in just 1 second. But first, the NFL is back, and the best place to celebrate is on FanDuel, because right now all customers can get a no sweat bet for week one. Just place a bet on any week one NFL game. You'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. Bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit the FanDuel Sportsbook app and kick off the NFL season with America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia. Call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Ed, we've had you on Talk College Football already so far this year. We are familiar with your model there. And we were talking about that. You said that your preseason college football model takes win totals and factors that in with strength of schedule and stuff like that to derive a market-based power ranking before the year. Is that the same logic you use on the NFL side of things, or how do things work from an NFL perspective before the year begins?
Yeah, it is. I do the market rankings for the NFL as well. I take market win totals and I go text out a rank and a rating for every single team. And, that's what I've had up for most of the off season. I mean, we get those win totals pretty early. And so I first started doing it in July, and it gives you a sense for what the market thinks of these teams. And, I think I took the last one like Monday and did those rankings. You see a lot of kind of late movement. But recently, I've actually added a wisdom of crowds model, and this comes from kind of the first insight was when, Nate Silver talked about how he was using the preseason AP poll in his college basketball NCAA tournament predictions. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and there was a lot of interesting analytics to back that up. So after I read that, I was like, we should do the same thing for the NFL. And so I take 20 subjective power rankings, and 20 seems to be a good number, a good balance between ones that I kind of trust. And I try to strive for big media outlets where there's kind of some meat to the article, some kind of evidence that someone is paying this man to have his opinion out there. He, her, they actually put some effort into coming up with these rankings. I try to avoid smaller sites that just put out a list because that seems kind of easy to do. I usually end up with about 20, and then I map every subjective ranking onto a ranking by just looking at kind of on average, based on my team rankings of 10 years, how good is the first team, how good is the second team, so on and so forth on average. So I actually cleaned up some of the data this offseason and found that so it's not quite as accurate as my full model. But for the first 6 weeks, it's actually very good ATS. It's 55% when the prediction differs from the closing line by more than the point. And I found that to be quite shocking and quite pleasantly shocking. I think what it's saying is that, the market moves on teams, and but you probably shouldn't move too much, at least not in those first 5 games, because it doesn't seem like that's necessarily enough of watching these teams to really make opinion. You have all kinds of issues with small sample size. You have a league like the NFL where regression is a very strong thing. When you look at the preseason rankings, that ATS accuracy definitely goes down in the second and third parts of the season. But overall, it's 52.5%. So, and a lot of that's obviously in the first 6 weeks.
Right.
So I blend that in as well. It turns out that when you look at the market aspect of the rankings, that's not as good ATS. I think it's actually more accurate when you look at some error metrics, but it's not as good ATS.
Right.
And I have some ideas of why that's true. But I think you can make a strong case that you should be looking at these, kind of strange, not really numbers-based metrics, but they're pretty powerful in the early part of the NFL.
But you've been using wisdom of the crowds type logic for a long time, and it applies to a bunch of different aspects to your projection building process and stuff like that. So the power of that kind of thinking. So I think it makes sense that they'd apply to NFL. You just have to kind of find a creative way to do so, given there is no AP poll for the NFL.
I actually technically think there is an AP poll for the NFL, but that's actually not what I use. I just kind of pull the 1 through 32 rankings myself, and I go from there.
Cool. I love it. Well, that's fun. I love more Wisdom of the Crowds talk on the show as always, and we'll see how things do early on this year. Let's get talking about some games here on Sunday. Let's start things off with a game I think is pretty fun. That is the Bengals and the Browns, where right now we've got the Bengals as 2.5-point favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. Total in this game has inflated to 48.5, so it's moving towards the over in this one. Now, I think looking back to last year, I would say Deshaun Watson was awful, honestly, in the short time he had, but he was playing in a lot of heavy win games. It was the first time he had played in a very long time. So I'm curious for you, Ed, when you look at a situation like Watson, where it's a guy who in the past has had very high levels of efficiency, but the most recent sample on him is wretched. How do you handle a guy like that when trying to model out expectations for his team?
I let the wisdom of crowds do it.
Love it.
When I look at some of the models that I have, when based on market win totals, Cleveland is 13th. Wisdom of crowds that I just told you about, they're 15th. So they're a little bit better than NFL average. And I think the defense is going to be better than NFL average. It's one of the few defenses that I do have some faith in. That means the offense is going to be slightly below NFL average. That's kind of the mean expectation right now. Can Cleveland be a lot better than that? Yeah, of course I think they can. But right now, I think, your safe projection is that the team is roughly average and let's go from there. So I think it's tough, if you're going to make this projection, what do you do? It's hard to make a numerical metrics based look at this, right? Especially because he hasn't played that long. You don't really have comparable players that have had that kind of break in the prime of their career. So I think that's really tough. I would definitely trust people who watch the tape in the preseason, but we're going to get a lot of data pretty soon. And so I think it's a tough one. I think it's a tough one. Clearly it's a tough one to do based on the data. And I think it's even tough, even if you're not, even if you're watching tape.
Yeah. I don't know if there's really a perfect way to do this. For me personally, it is kind of a blend of what we saw last year, not just from Watson, but also from Jacoby Brissett in this offense, because I trust Kevin Stefanski. He does some things that I don't agree with from a play calling perspective, but I think his overall thesis of running an offense is largely pretty good play designer and stuff like that. So putting trust in him. And when I do that, I actually do wind up liking the Browns a decent amount. Now, maybe not specifically in this game, but my win total project for them is pretty high, in large part due to just kind of trusting Stefanski. Now, that could wind up going poorly, which is why I'm okay not being super in on this game for week one. But I don't know. It's tough for me to not have some sort of hope. If Stefanski can have an efficient offense with Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield, I feel like I kind of want to lean toward at least giving him the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I probably lean towards more that I think Deshaun Watson can be at least significantly above NFL. Not significantly. I think he'd be above NFL average.
Yeah.
At one point, he was one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the league when he was playing. So I think he can be better than NFL average. There's certainly more of a ceiling there.
And that ceiling obviously translates for the long run of the season, but they're facing a team that also has a very high ceiling in the Bengals. So when you look at this game specifically, Ed, what does your model say here?
Right. So my model actually has Cincinnati by more than 3.5 points in this game. Joe Burrow had the thigh issue or some kind of leg or knee issue. Doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. He's ready to go. They have those high-powered receivers. And the reason I actually really the reason that I bet this game is because Denzel Ward, the cornerback for Cleveland, has a concussion. He is questionable for this game. I think with just the way concussions are these days, they're going to be extra cautious. And just actually a note overall, I feel like we're in mid-season and NFL injury list form. It's kind of crazy, with the Kelsey injury. And I was looking at it today, and there's all kinds of high-profile players that are on the injury list. I was like, guys, we've only been practicing. What is going on? Why are we in mid-season injury form?
Right.
You would expect injuries and absences not to. Absences can play a big deal, obviously, if a player like Chris Jones isn't signed, but we shouldn't be having this many injuries when a lot of these players are just practicing over the past month. So maybe it's just a sign for what's going on in these camps, and they're really using that to get ready. Yeah, I like Cincinnati minus 2.5 in this game, and mostly my numbers like it, and the Ward situation definitely pushes me over the top.
Yeah, it's not ideal to not have your top corners against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's the worst possible game to not have your top corner.
The minus 2.5 on the Bengals is minus 110 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook for their game against the Cleveland Browns. Second game we're going to discuss for today is the 49ers at the Steelers, where right now we've got the 49ers as 2.5-point favorites in this game. And the total right now at FanDuel Sportsbook is 41.5. Now, similar to the Watson discussion, we don't have a lot of data on Brock Purdy. He was very efficient in a small sample last year, but he's also a 7th-round pick. And most 7th-round picks do not play, much less play well. So Are you kind of taking the same approach with Purdy and the 49ers where you want to let wisdom of the crowds answer expectations for them entering this year?
Right. I mean, I think with Purdy, Edward Egros was on my podcast, and he is down on the Niners for exactly what you said. We have a pretty small sample size on Brock Purdy. He's not necessarily buying it. I went through a pretty deep look for the Niners, and I don't know. I decided between the small sample size, yes, that's certainly a concern, and that he might not be as good. But I think with all the weapons that they have, with the quality of their defense, with the pass rush tools that they have, I'm not ready to fade the Niners yet. So in this game, I have San Francisco by 2.2 points by my preseason model that I trust a lot. Really not seeing any value here. A team that I will watch to see what's going on with Purdy. I feel like I don't really expect him to be as good as he was in 7 games last year. The only person so this offseason I started not doing passing success rate, not by team, but by quarterback. And when I did that, the only person that had a better adjusted success rate than Brock Purdy was Patrick Mahomes. I don't think we're going to see that same level of efficiency. I think that's just too tall of an order to ask for any quarterback. Really, that's not Patrick Mahomes. But is he still going to be good? And are the Niners still going to be good? Probably. So I'm not ready to fade them. I didn't fade them in the win totals. And I think this line is pretty efficient.
Yeah, 2.5 again, the number right now for the Steelers and the 49ers. Steelers have been a pretty trendy sleeper pick for a lot of people, and I'm not sure they can count as a sleeper if everyone has them as their sleeper for the year. But I think they're a respectable team entering 2023, given they've got TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick healthy. So I think that it's a lot of things that add up to this game winding up being a bit of a stay away. But Steelers plus 112 at home in the situation. And I do want to, I got a bone to pick with Edward because I feel like we had him on our show way back in the day, Ed. And I'm pretty sure we talked about Brock Purdy for Heisman. This would have been after his true freshman year at Iowa State. And I think Edward and I were on the same page. And I know it's, 5 years, a lot has changed or whatever, but I feel a little betrayed that he's jumped off the Purdy hype train.
Jim, that was 5 years ago.
And it didn't go well. I should note that too, because Brock Purdy got worse every year, it seemed like, at Iowa State.
I'm not sure he got worse, but he certainly didn't get better. He was fantastic as a freshman, and everyone thought the world of him, and he really never kind of took the leap. Yeah. And then he gets to the NFL, and all of a sudden, he's beating Tom Brady and screwing up my spread bets in Tampa Bay versus San Francisco. So, we'll see. I mean, football is fun because we're allowed to change our mind after 4 years.
Not Edward, though.
Take a different side.
Not Edward. I'll bring this up with him eventually to let him know that I've taken umbrage with his betrayal of our boy, Brock Purdy. Let's talk here and now about an afternoon game, Ed, where I have honestly no idea what to expect. That is between the Chargers and the Dolphins, where right now the Chargers are 3-point favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. Total in this game is 50.5. And a big part of the reason why I have no idea what to expect, Ed, is because the Chargers consistently get hype, sometimes from me, and then they consistently fail to live up to said hype. So I want to ask you, because I've got no idea, where are you on the Chargers entering this year?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's always a reason. I feel like there's always a good reason why the Chargers don't live up to it. Herbert had the rib issues last year that he was playing with. They've always, it seems like their receivers are always hurt, injuries on the defense. There was issues with Bosa last year. So, they made the playoffs, had that massive failure. I'm not ready to write off the potential of this team. When I look at my metrics, they're 7th based on market win totals, 8th based on wisdom of crowds. I can't dock them lower than, being out of a top 10 team, given that the talent they have, given that Herbert is a young quarterback with a lot of assets. I think, I have this game as the Chargers, minus 2.2 points on the road, not seeing a ton of value here. I will note that I had Adam Chernoff of Right Angle Sports on my podcast, and he actually had this as one of 2 legs in a teaser He was teasing the Dolphins here up to I guess 9 on a 6-point teaser. He likes Miami. He likes what the defense is going to have with Vic Fangio. He thinks this Miami's going to be able to keep this close, and I have no opinion on the side.
Honestly, like I feel like I cast ambiguity on this game as a result of the Chargers side, but I feel like the Dolphins side also makes it tough to analyze because they had that white hot start last year with Tua Tagovailoa. He gets hurt, and then they slide off, obviously, which makes sense because they were using backup and third string and fourth string quarterbacks. But even when Tua was healthy towards the end of the year, there were times where it was a bit of a struggle. And now I feel like Teron Armstead will probably play because he always plays through injuries, but like they got injuries to the left tackle already, injuries to Jeff Wilson, so he won't be out there. I honestly feel like
questionable.
Yeah. And so like you've got two teams that confound me, Ed. And like that's the beauty of betting is I don't have to bet this game. I can just stay away and let things develop. And I feel like that's the route I want to take, given these two teams are so confusing to me.
Right, for sure. And I appreciate, of course, that you put the most difficult games to analyze on the list of questions for me. But I feel pretty good that I feel pretty confident about Cincinnati. So at least I have a pretty strong opinion on one of them.
Well, we had to toss you fully back into the fire with NFL
exactly.
stuff. So welcome back for sure. What about elsewhere on the board, Ed? Where else are you seeing value across week 1 at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually have a pretty strong opinion tonight. I really like Kansas City by 4.5. I bet it at 4.5. And you guys came down. I mean, FanDuel was sitting at 5.5 for a while there yesterday after the news that Kelsey had hurt his knee. He might not play. Look, I have this game in excess of 8. I think that is the right projection. I think that Detroit is riding the hype of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, and we're just kind of forgetting that he's been the play caller for a single year, and sure, that year went really well, but he's been dealt the hand of Jared Goff, who was fantastic last year. I'm on Ross St. Brown, who is an emerging superstar, and honestly, not much else that you want to write home about on that side of the ball. I honestly think that Detroit should have a lot of optimism on the defense. I really like some of the additions that they made in the secondary. This is a secondary that I've looked at for the past 2 years and been like, this is one of the worst units in the NFL, and they've done nothing. They finally changed that this season. They bring in some help. And of course, Emmanuel Mosley's out tonight. So again, part of this just insane injury list, like I usually wait a couple weeks before, like the injury thing is one of the first things I check before looking to make a bet. It's just, you just got to go there first. So Mosley's for sure out. I like Kansas City minus 4.5 tonight. I sent it out to my newsletter yesterday. I think, I kind of hesitate to, send out stuff to my email list and my people for a market that's been up for a couple months and it's, 36 hours before kickoff. Like I really try not to do that.
Yeah.
But I really do think, and actually, honestly, I think the Kelsey injury opened up more value in that because they're saying the market is essentially saying it's 2 points when he's still questionable and may play tonight. I think that adds more value, honestly. I would have bet this in minus 6.5 with Kelsey, but I like it better at minus 4.5.
So looking at my numbers here, I've got same thing as last year. I'm running 2 separate models for this year. The older one performed better, so that's my primary one, but also have an alternate model that I think is better logic behind it. It didn't perform as well last year, but I still like the logic behind it. So I do want to keep running it. The traditional one, the one that performs better. If I take Chris Jones out, but keep Kelsey in now, I have the Chiefs by 6.2. So, that's a downgrade with Chris Jones being out, but it's still better than 4.5. Alternate model with no Chris Jones has the Chiefs by 9.1. So if you take the average of my two models, I'm pretty much in line with you where you have it around 8 points. Obviously, Kelsey would downgrade it, but it's not going to downgrade it 3 points or whatever. So I feel like I agree with you where this is a bit of an overreaction. Now, was part of the move because it became reality that Chris Jones wouldn't play? Potentially. And that is a big impact for this defense. But it's not like the Lions are like, clicking at 100% because who's their deep threat with no Jameson Williams for these first 6 games? I don't know. Is it Khalif Raymond? That's not ideal. Is it Marvin Jones in 2023? That's not ideal either. So I like the Lions a lot, and I have high expectations for them. I just think that we're underselling how good Andy Reid is, how good Patrick Mahomes is, in a spot where I know that there's no Travis Kelce, but they've still got those 2 guys, and those 2 guys, I feel like at least give them a high floor, even with no Kelce and no Chris Jones.
So, I mean, have I talked you into pulling the trigger on this one?
Probably not, because I don't want to have to sweat a bet. I kind of want to just enjoy this game. I've got enough stuff going for Sunday and Monday, I guess, with the Jets game too. So I'm probably not going to. All some DFS lineups I can sweat, but if Kelce gets ruled out and it goes to 4, then I might at that point. So I think that's where I'll wind up on this one, personally.
I feel like the market was at -7, and then there was more news that Chris Jones wasn't going to play. I feel like the move to 6.5 was in response to that, which I think is legitimate. He is obviously a key part of that defense. But I don't know. I feel pretty strongly about KC in this game.
Yeah, I think I hope it's a high scoring game. Hope it's a fun game. Want to see my guy, Jared Goff, ball out, but I think that the Chiefs are the right side of this one as well. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread, but we are back with you once again tomorrow. We're going to have JJ Zacharyson back on once again this year, talking some player props every Friday, but also Rob Friedman, Pitching Ninja, will still be with us, talking about his favorite strikeout props across Friday night in Major League Baseball. To get that, to get Tom Vecchio's preview of Thursday Night Football, to get our college football preview of Week 2, find all that in the Covering the Spread podcast feed, and the regular shows can be up on FanDuel YouTube and on FanDuel TV+. Ed, you mentioned the newsletter you have for members. Where can people sign up for that if they want to get involved with that?
Yeah, check it out at thepowerrank.com and 5 Nuggets Saturday. It's usually a combination of stuff. My plan, what I've been doing for the past couple of months is putting I've been doing a prop bet every week, and I plan to continue that during football season. And then, I try to curate bets from other people that I think you should be paying attention to. So if you're looking for some action on any given weekend, you like analytics, this is definitely a service for you. Check it out at thepowerrank.com.
You can also find Ed on Twitter at The Power Rank. Check out his work, thepowerrank.com, and the Football Analytics Show is Ed's other podcast as well. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can follow FanDuel Research at FanDuel Research. Enjoy the football for tonight, everybody. Good luck to you if you decide to bet into this game. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow for some player props for Sunday and Monday. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.